Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio for episode number 81, Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Today, we are discussing my pick. The documentary is called Downfall. It's on Netflix, and it tells the story of the downfall of Boeing and really the 737. Now, you probably didn't know this, or maybe you did, but we're going to let the cat out of the bag.
We're going to peek behind the curtain.
Man, we got to, because this is really crazy stuff. So last week we did, the local Springfield music scene documentary Jay picked, which was cool. My pick was this one after this. Watch the documentary Sunday night. It's typically when I do it. I'll watch it on Sunday, so it's fresh in my mind when we come in Monday to talk about it. And we record this in advance, and it was this morning I came into the studio after watching a documentary about how all these Boeing 737s crashed because of faulty software, faulty code, if you will, and Boeing's inability or cover-up of the situation. We'll get into that in a minute. But another plane crashed, a Boeing 737, on the morning of us recording this.
Problem's not
in
fixed.
China.
The problem's not fixed.
I'm sitting there in the bathroom doing my morning scroll, and I look and see that, and I go, oh my God, are you kidding me? On the morning we're supposed to record this thing, I look, first comment says, and it looks like it was a nosedive, which was literally what happened with all these plane crashes. Let me ask you, Jay Stevens, you want to get on a Boeing 737 anytime soon?
I even don't want to. When I flew to Hawaii a few weeks ago, I was like, what kind of plane was it? It was the other one. There's
the other
There's
Max.
like three types of planes that are the main ones, and this is one of them.
That just, I obviously, they
cutting
say
corners, man.
They say that
cutting costs,
we don't believe
corners.
in coincidences, but man, I got goosebumps when I walked. Jay came in the studio. I was like, bro, can you believe? He's like, what? And I told him, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe another one happened after they brought him back up, which is crazy because this story it's a few years in the making. It gets really technical. It kind of gets it gets really bogged down with like the timeline of how all this started and the system and the cover up and the grounding and the billions and billions of dollars in fines, which unfortunately the family will never see. But to come in to record this thing on the same day that another one crashed.
Not good, man.
It's not good at all. I try not to, sometimes when they post videos online of like bad things happening, it's hard not to look at it, but they had video of this thing.
Of it going down?
Straight down.
Man.
2.5 minutes of a descent. What would you do in that last 2.5 minutes of your life? We'll find out next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 81, discussing Downfall, which tells the story of the Boeing 737, the cover-up, the fines, the loss of life. And on the day that we're recording this thing, there was more loss of life. Rest in peace. It was like 130, 140 passengers.
Yeah, it's about what they hold, 130 people, it seems like.
It's crazy that after all this time, and this really timeline started like 6 years when they
the documentary was...
thing.
It seemed like Boeing was a great place to work for a while.
Dude,
it was awesome and rocking, right?
No BS. I worked with a guy in college who I partied with hard times. Craig the Leg is what I called him.
Craig the Leg.
Did
he have one wooden leg?
Crazy
or just
awesome
one
dude.
real leg?
Super cool guy. His dad was actually a FBI agent and did gang task force stuff in St. Louis when he was a kid. And this was like 90s, And he said he remember waking up and his dad would just throw him on the ground and they would just lay on top of each other because they were so scared of getting drive-bys because he was an informant, essentially.
Wow.
Crazy story. But anyway, I worked with this dude in college, and years later, after we grew up and got real jobs, he went on to be a contractor for Boeing. And it is serious. The only other time that I've actually been like interrogated or interviewed because of someone getting a job was when my stepfather went to get like super high security clearance. And it was the same type of thing. And this was for contract work. This wasn't for the government. This was for contract work. So yes, to go back to what you were saying, they are very legitimate. But again...
It sounded like were.
Well, were. I mean, that's the thing. You always hear these stories about people that get away with stuff, And they never really talk about like, oh, I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done that until they get caught. And then they're like, I guarantee you.
Kind of like Pfizer.
The pharmaceutical companies, plane companies, whatever it is that involves a lot of people and a lot of money, there are companies and corporations that cut corners that do get away with things that could have horrendous results, but luckily nothing happens and it's cool. Sometimes it gets caught early and they're like, hey,
slap on the hand.
Let's get around the recalls. This stuff happens all the time. It just happened to be with the Boeing 737 that this was, when you have a massive crash like this, which it started out with 3 big crashes, Indonesia, Ethiopia, and then I guess they started looking into the manufacturer within the U.S. and that's where they had the investigations. Lion Air Flight 610, Ethiopian's Airplanes Flight 302 were the 2 big ones. And like I said, this was like, oh, crap, we screwed up. But that stuff happens all the time. Now, let's go back to what we said before we went into this break with the crash that happened today. They said descent of 2.5 minutes. What the hell is Jay Stevens going to do in that last 2 months of his life?
That's it, man. I guess just prepare for impact, man.
Pray.
I mean, what can you do?
2.5 minutes, 30 seconds.
I don't know if prayer's going to do you any good at that point. It's like, here we go. Here we go, man.
Prayers, I don't know. I just hope I'm with my wife.
Try to send out a text message or something,
2.5 minute TikTok before your eyes are going down. Can you imagine? I know it's morbid, but we're speaking in hypotheticals here.
I was on a plane once that I felt it could have gone down. It was a crazy
bad turbulence.
Flight. Pretty wicked one. Yeah, one of my kids was pretty little. I just grabbed her on my lap and just held on her as tight as I could, and it was I was pretty sure the thing was going to go down. It was crazy.
And it's really, really, really crazy when you get caught in those turbulent situations that last for a long time. You look at the attendants and stuff, and they're trained, so there's no worry across their face. But like, it is scary when you're flying in a metal cylinder, thousands of miles
if you think about it,
an hour up super high, and all of a sudden you're just like riding and you go like this.
Yeah, well,
and then you go like this.
And it's kind of amazing.
And you're like, oh my God.
It's really kind of amazing planes don't crash more often,
Well, considering
it's mechanical parts.
You always go back to the whole thing. It's safer to drive. It's safer to fly in a plane than it is a car,
which
statistically speaking.
Which seems crazy.
But that's a hard thing to say because it's not like everyone in the world is flying planes all at the same time, but everyone is driving cars. So statistically speaking, that is going to happen. That's just a fact because more people drive cars than fly planes. Granted, there are a lot of safety features, but what happens when literally this comes down to coding?
Well, okay, check it out. This new truck that you bought. What year is this new truck?
93.
And it's got how many miles?
100,000.
Okay. There's a 93. Some of these planes, aren't they older than 93?
Oh, dude.
And so you wouldn't trust taking your truck to St. Louis, but yet we're jumping in these things and going like 8,000 miles.
Oh, man. It's giving you something to think about. It's Dark Side of the Stream discussing downfall. We'll get to more next on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave is Springfield's pure classic rock. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio discussing Downfall on Netflix. It's crazy the timing on this because obviously there was another crash in China, the 737. And it's the same. I mean, I'm sure it's not official yet. Maybe it is, but as of this morning, it looked like it was a nosedive, which was essentially what this computer thing inside of the plane was causing. It would trigger a warning without the pilot really knowing, and then boom. They didn't do training on what to do if this happened. And again, it comes back to like human error. It's a coding error, but that happens all the time. It happens in computer software. Hell, look when a video game gets released and a guy's head like falls away. That stuff happens all the time. But when you're dealing with like automated travel and stuff like that,
it's time for Elon Musk to develop teleportation.
Well, see, the thing is that goes back to that's a great person to bring up because EV cars, like self-driving cars, they're talking about possibly the one day we're having self-driving semis, driving transport and stuff across the country. It wouldn't be crazy to think that one day we'd have flying planes, you know.
Well, I think for a lot of it, they do self-fly, right?
Well,
the pilots are like,
but you have the human element in there.
You're just there in case something goes wrong.
The code
right?
in this case goes wrong. But the problem is, a lot of the pilots early on didn't have any idea that this was going on. Like, didn't really know
how to fix the problem,
when it was happening.
Yeah.
And so inevitably, Boeing gets. I mean, they've got fined. It was billions and billions of dollars. 60, I think, billion in losses, 20 billion in fines, 1,200 canceled orders because of all this stuff. So they lost a lot of money, but how do you put a price on a loss?
And it looks like the problem's not fixed.
Obviously not. But going back to what you said in the last break, dude, I bought a 93 Ford Ranger, right? It's in great condition. Great condition. I love that truck. It's awesome. No, not a whole lot of computer stuff in it, man. I can work on that thing for the rest of my life if I want to. But you're right. There are planes still flying over our heads that are the same age as that Ford Ranger.
You wouldn't trust taking that.
And they flew that thing a lot more than that truck has been driven. I'll tell you that much. And sometimes it gets a little shaky.
You got to jump on the other planes, man.
Well, and you, especially when you like take those, like, I'm not going to name any names here because I don't want to get in trouble, but like the discount airliners, you know, the airline, when you get on those planes and you like look at the seats and you look at how it's just all put together and you're just
sketchy.
Like, I'm glad I'm only up in the air for 2 hours. You know what I mean? But God, the thing that breaks my heart is, especially living in this part of the country, that we never got an Amtrak system down here to connect us to St. Louis, Chicago, Kansas City. From what I always understood was that this was like a hub for commercial, and they were afraid that if they put passenger through here, that would gum up the commercial end of it. I've heard that. I'm not really sure. Also, car manufacturers made a big push for the interstate system in this country. They didn't have the pull they did in other countries. That's why when you go to Japan, you go to Europe, literally you buy a pass and you can go anywhere.
Yeah, train is like anywhere the way you roll
literally
around.
Within like blocks of where you're supposed to be via train. You come to the United States, if you don't have a car, you're screwed. That it really is in part to the car manufacturers for doing that. But it sucks because once if you've been in this area for a long time, your whole life, whatever, you've never really experienced what it's like to get on a train and go. And yeah, granted, it sucks sometimes when you get held up and you got your train was supposed to be a 3-hour trip and now it's 5, now it's 6, or it's 6, now it's 10. It happens. But a little bit safer. You know what I mean? At least in my opinion. And I would
think a train would be safer than a plane, yeah.
Yeah, I would think. And again, my dream has always been if they get Amtrak down here to Kansas City, how badass would it be?
You want to be a conductor?
Oh, that would be really badass. I don't think I'd pass the drug test.
Riding that train high on cocaine.
I'm not gonna pass that drug test. But getting a train from here to Kansas City, we jump on the train, get drunk, get off in Kansas City,
why don't
get
they have
an Uber
that?
to the stadium, watch the Chiefs tailgate, get back on the train, come home.
Yeah, why don't they have this? Ah, man. Here we go.
That's as good as mine.
That's a money-making opportunity.
And we can't fly every Sunday, so unfortunately we're driving. But that's what we're talking about, flying. We'll get to our reviews next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio one more time for our looks and review of Downfall on Netflix. How many airplane bags, puke bags would you give?
Any airplane puke bags? 2.5.
Too sciencey for you?
Yeah, it was a little too slow, a little too sciencey.
Because there's a lot to digest.
No twist. It was just kind of just like a news story.
It
was like a glorified news story. To me.
Isn't it kind of messed up that you and I were, I guess the world at this point, we look at things like this, you know, and years ago, you could have talked about this huge cover up and all that stuff. But now you look at a big corporation like that and you're like,
what they do.
Aren't they all not doing this?
They all cut costs to maximize profits and skip.
And again, most of the time, thankfully for us, they get lucky and either it gets found before it becomes a huge problem or they decide to eat the cost and they fix it. But sometimes they don't. And it's not just the airline industry. It's not just the pharmaceutical companies. It's damn near everything we do every single
corporate
day
greed,
of our life.
one of the biggest problems in America.
I mean, you know, they used to use asbestos as fake snow in plays and movies and all that stuff, and now look at it. So, I mean, you pick a thing,
man.
And you know what? It's going to cause problems, and we just have to continue to get better and learn more as we go along. I would give it Probably about a solid 3.5. I normally I'm into the science stuff, but again, it does get kind of boggy with what, you kind of you really have to follow along. You can't be playing video poker and watching this thing at the same time. You're almost in an aviation class, if you will. So next week is Jay's turn. What documentary are we going to watch?
Bad Vegan. Netflix.
Bad Vegan.
Just when you think scammers can't get any worse than Tinder Swindler.
Tinderson.
We got a whole
Swindler.
We got another level.
I'm going to Tinder.
Just when you think victims can't be any stupider, we found a more stupider one.
Bad Vegan. All right, sounds good.
Bad Vegan. Very interesting story. I watched it over the weekend and I was amazed.
All right, man. We'll check it out. You can watch it in the meantime. Watch these live on Facebook or on YouTube now. Just search Dark Side of the Stream. You can stream it as a podcast on our 104.7 The Cave app or listen live every Thursday, 9 a.m. I'm Mike the Intern. This is Jay Stevens saying, we watch movies
documentaries
so you don't have to. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.